There are attendees on now.
There it is.
There it is. It's up. All right, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to the meeting of the Mayor and Council of Princeton, New Jersey, September 27th, 2021. And we will start with the meeting notice statement.
Notice of this meeting was provided in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act and state regulations governing remote public meetings, including the time, date, and location of the meeting, and clear and concise instructions to the public for accessing the meeting and making comments. In addition, the agenda and all related materials were posted electronically and made available to the public on Princeton's meeting portal in advance of the meeting.
Thank you, Dolores. Can we have the roll call, please?
Yes. Ms. Perrone-Lambrose?
Here.
Ms. Niedergang?
Here.
Mr. Cohen? Ms. Fraga?
Here.
Mr. Williamson?
Here.
Ms. Sachs?
Here.
Mayor Frida?
Here.
You want to call Mr. Cohen again, Dolores? I think he unmuted after.
I am here.
Yes, I see. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. The first item we have is we have 6 sets of minutes. Those could be moved in block unless people have any questions or comments on any one individually. Eve?
I'm ready to move them en masse.
Okay. Thank you
I'll
very much.
second.
Thank you, Leticia. Just to make sure, no questions or comments on the minutes? All right, if not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's everybody. Thank you very much. The minutes are passed. Announcements and reports. Council members first. Leticia?
Mine is very quick. This week, actually last week, the Youth Advisory Committee held its first meeting of the new academic year, and we welcomed 5 new members, including one that is from Princeton Day School and one from Hun. And I credit the youth work of the Youth Advisory Committee on their outreach last academic year to do outreach to other schools and to encourage them to apply. So they're already got off to a great start, forming their goals for the year, and we'll look forward to hearing more from them. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Eve?
I'm the reverse of Leticia. I have a lot to share tonight. Sorry, I'll try to be brief. So just want to announce on behalf of the Open Space and Personnel Committee that we've hired an open space manager, and they'll be starting in November. We expect that the open space manager will help us with both understanding and making the best use of our current and anticipated open spaces. I just want to highlight something from the Animal Advisory from our animal control officer that has appeared in our newsletter as well, which is that we're experiencing an outbreak of, I'm going to probably get this wrong, epizootic hemorrhagic disease, or EHD, in our deer population. So if you see a deer staggering around or looking ill, please use Click Fix to contact the municipality and let them know. And our animal control officer is removing deer carcasses as needed during the week, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. We have so far seen about 25 cases. It is not dangerous to people, but it can be unpleasant and a little scary, I think, at times. So just wanted to give everyone a heads up about that. Moving on to the Cannabis Task Force. This month, the Cannabis Task Force held 3 public meetings, one on Zoom, one on Heinz Plaza, and the most recent one as an invited guest of the Witherspoon Jackson Neighborhood Association at the Arts Council. We were excited to hear from a number of members of the public who have never before attended any municipal meeting, so that gave me a particular thrill because it's always good to see our citizens engaging. We got a lot of input from people that came, and all of the input that we've collected in September and at our previous meeting will be or has been shared with the task force as it moves forward to make recommendations. The prospects of locating a cannabis dispensary at the Princeton Shopping Center did generate substantial concern from members of the public, and that zone has now been removed from the task force's list of potential commercial zones. Other concerns raised in the meetings, such as the appropriate distance from schools for a potential dispensary, will be discussed by the task force at its next meeting. All right, halfway done. From the library, as my role as the library liaison. So first, just want to say the library is almost back finally to its pre-pandemic hours of operation. And you can once again reserve study rooms, which is a great place to, to work or do whatever you need to do to have a meeting during the week. And I also want to give a shout out about the library's benefit. There'll be a 3-part benefit. There's an in-person event on Heinz Plaza on Saturday, October 9th from 4:30 to 7, and then 2 virtual conversations. The first of these is with novelist Omar El-Akkad, author of the highly regarded American War. That's on November 12th. And the second is with Jean Hant Corlitz, author of the novel that was the basis for HBO's The Undoing. And I have to say, and a childhood friend who I will be interviewing on December 3rd as part of the library benefit. Princeton Senior Resource Center also is having their fundraiser, and they are thrilled to welcome Dr. Bernice A. King, daughter of Martin Luther King and Coretta Scott King, CEO of the King Center and advocate for peace. And she will be speaking virtually on Saturday, October 16th at 7:30. Finally, the Sustainable Landscaping Project. We expect that the ordinance that will revise the rules for landscaper registration and address concerns about the use of gas leaf blowers and other gas equipment should be arriving for council to consider at our next meeting on October 11th. This is an initial step in an effort to encourage and require our property owners to be part of a paradigm shift towards viewing their properties as ecosystems and caring for them in more sustainable ways. And that's it.
Thank you, Eve. Michelle.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple things, not quite as many as Eve, but thank you. I wanted to report, first of all, that the Community Center Feasibility Task Force had its first meeting last week, and the members are representing many community partners such as PCH, PHA, Pinell Center, the schools, and other organizations and individuals. We discussed first steps that the task force will take, and they're going back now and doing some homework. We'll be determining what is already being offered in town, where we may be falling short or falling through the cracks, and what ideally could be offered at a potential community center. It's understood that the mission of the task force is not to determine facilities or location, but rather to make a recommendation to council on services the center could potentially offer while avoiding duplication of such services that may already be offered in town. So we have quite a bit of work ahead of us, but it was a good first meeting. I also wanted to report on the Economic Development Committee. So we had a meeting discussing how to keep the CBD cleaner. This has been an ongoing problem with outdoor dining, and it hasn't gotten any better. So we discussed this, and it's all agreed that having outdoor dining is a privilege that's given to the restaurants, and they need to do their part too in helping to keep clean. So in particular, the trash bins that are public trash bins have not been, they are regularly emptied by Public Works twice a day, every day. But in between, they have been accumulating a lot of the takeout trash. So several members of the EDC have been reaching out personally and discussing measures that they can take to help these restaurant owners keep their areas cleaner. And some of them set good examples themselves, so they're sharing that with their neighbors and colleagues. And the other concern that the EDC brought up that we'll be reaching out to Deanna and the engineering staff with is to have a meeting with the business community in the EDC about the construction schedule and how this will impact traffic, deliveries, and business in general in the next 2 years. So we'll be organizing with engineering and the planning department. And last, I just have an announcement. I think we've mentioned this before, but Jeff Speck, the author of Walkable Cities, it's very exciting. He'll be here in Princeton, and he'll be giving, there's a lecture tomorrow evening at 6:30 p.m. at the Nassau Inn, and it's open to anyone who would like to attend. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to throw in two quick things about the agenda that I should have said right at the beginning of announcements. On the under presentations, we have something called Facilities RFP, and I'd like to take that off the agenda because that's not quite ready for prime time, so to speak. There's some changes that still need to be made to that document. So as long as there's no disagreement on that, and also Resolution 21309, which is much as I want to, and I know a number of us want to get this in place, but that's a agreement with Rider University for public parking. We don't have the complete back and forth with the attorneys completed on that yet. We were hoping to have that done today, but it's not. So we can't really vote on that since we don't have all the replies from Rider yet. So those two items, the Facilities RFP and Resolution 21309, will be taken off the agenda if there's no objection to that. All right, seeing no objection, thank you very much. Dwayne, I think you were up next.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a couple announcements. The first is from the Recreation Department. Just wanted to announce that the Recreation Department is, we're adding a few what we call adaptive recreation programs. And in short, adaptive recreation programs are for recreational beginners and an ideal environment for students with physical challenges, autism, Down syndrome, sensory processing disorder, and other individual learning differences. So these include a track clinic with Special Olympics Coach Harrington, a Rhythm Works dance program. In fact, just on Friday, September 17th, we had over 70 participants attend the adaptive dance and pizza party at CP Pool. Everyone knows by now that we lost the services we're getting from Princeton Special Sports. So recreation is really working hard to fill that gap. The second announcement item covers both Princeton Housing Authority and also Princeton Affordable Housing. And that's, we're still working on the RFP for to provide Wi-Fi project across some of the Housing Authority properties and also affordable housing properties. And of course, that includes the $72,000 that we got from the last round of CDBG funds. So that's that RFP is still being worked on, and what they're looking for is basically a 5-year contract with to provide this Wi-Fi internet service. So that's all the news that's fit to print from me. Thanks.
Dwayne, thanks. And I want to say that Bernie and I both were able to attend the adaptive dance event on September 17th that the Recreation Department held in the pool complex, moved a bunch of tables aside. It was a great event. Boy, the people were having a great time. In fact, somebody from somewhere in the neighborhood even called the police and said, "What's all the noise over there?" So anyway, just to say it was a really good event, and congratulations to the rec department for getting that going again. Obviously, with COVID, they couldn't do that for quite a while.
Right. In fact, Mayor, let me add this. I would be remiss if I didn't give a special shout out to Nicole Palucci, Evan Moorhead, of course, who is the executive director at REC, but in particular also Nicole Palucci, who's being the one spearheading all these adaptive programs.
Thank you, Dwayne. Good point.
You're welcome.
Other council announcements or reports? Mia.
Yeah, so this is wearing my transit committee liaison cap. The transit committee had written a letter to New Jersey Transit last year when they first announced that they would be doing the Dinky Corridor study, just expressing our concern that the town's needs and interests be kept uppermost in mind, and asking to be kept apprised on a regular basis of their progress. And they have done a pretty good job of that. And so we heard from them last week, just to give us the heads up that in November, they will be announcing the preliminary results of the study that they did. And the results are very broad. It's just sort of laying the groundwork for any subsequent, final decisions that would be made. And so I think they have 4 different categories that they're going to be talking about, pluses and minuses. And so it's just a very general foundation for the subsequent decisions, but it will be a step forward. So I know that many people in town are interested in and concerned about the progress that the quarter study is making. And so in November, we will have another update on that, and I'll keep you posted. And the other thing I just want to announce is next Sunday, October 3rd, the Jewish Center, together with a number of other synagogues in the area, are hosting an event called Affordable Housing in New Jersey, Lessons from Mount Laurel. And just read you the little blurb. What do we really understand about affordable housing? Why does this remain a contentious issue almost half a century after the New Jersey Supreme Court first declared that every New Jersey municipality is required to provide affordable housing? A panel of experts will discuss the background of the New Jersey Supreme Court Mount Laurel decisions, how they affect almost every town in New Jersey, and the reasons why all our communities should be providing affordable housing for lower income people. And there are a number of speakers, including a former a retired Superior Court judge, several attorneys, a Princeton University sociologist, Doug Massey, who wrote Climbing Mount Laurel. And, this is something that Princeton this process has engaged with, as most of you know, very intensely over the past 5 years, in particular in the past 2 years. And it's amazing to me how many questions still remain about Mount Laurel, why we do why towns are required to do what they're required to do. I know that Princeton has been accused at times of wanting to create its own framework for the production of affordable housing. And I know as council people, we've often had to explain to our residents that Princeton, despite the fact of being Princeton, is also subject to state law. And so I really encourage everyone to attend via Zoom and hear from some of the people who were there at the beginning of this decision, and inform yourselves on what the process is. Okay, that's all.
Thank you. David.
I just wanted to mention quickly for the Flood and Stormwater Committee. I know that these issues are top of mind for a lot of people in town after Ida dumped a record amount of water on us. Later in the agenda today, actually, you'll see the introduction of an ordinance for stormwater redevelopment. So I won't talk about that now, but that's one of the big efforts the committee has been engaged in over the last year. And the other is to put together a study of whether we can bring a stormwater utility to Princeton. And I wanted to make sure that people know that we put together an RFP to engage a consultant to study that issue. And it's in attorney review right now, but we are hoping to issue that shortly. So that's going to be another big step toward helping to manage our stormwater more effectively in Princeton.
Thank you, David. Eve and then Mia.
Sorry, I forgot one really important late-breaking development, which is for those who follow this, the Penn East Pipeline company has decided that they are not going to proceed. So this is just from an environmental perspective, just a phenomenally good piece of news. So just a shout out to all the people who have worked so hard on this for so many years. Thank you.
It's a great thing to note. Thank you. Mia, did you have another comment?
Yes, my mother just texted to remind me that I forgot to mention something important, which I really should remember because I'm the Sustainable Princeton liaison. So Shred Fest is coming on October 16th. It's on Thanet Road. You can have documents shredded, household goods, medical equipment recycled, electronic and computer equipment recycled. Also donate bicycles, dumpster discards, etc. So for questions, email accessprinceton@princetonnj.gov or check with Sustainable Princeton. And that is Saturday, October 16th at Thanet Circle.
Thank you. Any other council reports or announcements? Bernie?
Nothing, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Well, let's go then to the list of other items under announcements and reports. The police report.
Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. Just a few items that I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention tonight. And if I can, I'd just like to go back to the storm from a few weeks ago. Just to kind of put it all into perspective from the police point of view. During the storm, and I know we've had several meetings on this, but in case you haven't heard already, during the storm, we had over 400 calls for service throughout that evening, some of which were coming in from Montgomery. So as you can imagine, it was an incredibly busy evening for the police department. And just to kind of highlight how impactful and obviously how dangerous that evening was, we took some of our body cam footage from that night from our officers, and we posted it onto our Facebook account. So certainly encourage everyone, if you get the opportunity to go on there and you really can get a firsthand view of just how bad that storm was and how dangerous it was, and how you can actually see in the video how quickly the water was rising and just rushing down the street. Also, we had an officer, as a result of us posting that video, who was interviewed live on TV by the Weather Channel. So we put that video up there as well. So again, I just encourage everyone just to kind of, if you're fortunate enough not to go outside during that time, if you could maybe just, if you want to take a quick walk and you'll get a true firsthand account of just how bad it was. We are in the middle of our hiring process. We have 256 applicants that we just finished interviewing. I know that sounds like an incredible amount of interviews to do, and it is. But our perspective, or I should say our philosophy here in Princeton Police Department, is that if you take the time to apply to our agency and show interest, then we're going to give everyone the fair opportunity to come in and present themselves and at least have a brief conversation. So we've moved on from the original 256, and we started the physical fitness testing today, and that'll continue for the rest of this week, and then we'll continue on with additional interviews until we make a final list with an anticipation date of January for hiring, so we can conduct our in-service training, and February will be, if need be, they'll be attending the Mercer County Police Academy. We are still looking for crossing guards. We were somewhat successful over the summer in picking up new crossing guards. Unfortunately, there's some circumstances that we weren't able to use all applicants right away. So we do have some voids in our crossings right now. We have 24 school crossings that we cover twice a day. And when there are vacancies, the police department fills them. And right now we're averaging, just by the police department alone, we're averaging 13 a day. So that's a significant impact to our ability to respond. And at times, There are times where, quite frankly, we don't have anyone available, that everyone in the police station is out covering a school crossing. So again, we're making another strong push for crossing guards. Municipal employees are able to be crossing guards as well. So the advertisements are back out there, and I ask you folks that, in your meetings with the community, if you could just make that announcement as well, and hopefully we can get a couple more. David?
Chief, could you just tell a little bit about the time obligation for crossing guards? What hours in the morning, what hours in the afternoon? Is it possible to split?
Absolutely.
Coverage?
Yep. Yeah. So it's essentially 8 to 8:30 in the morning. There's also 45-minute crossings, 3 to 3:30 in the afternoon. And again, we're flexible. You can just cover the morning if you like. You can just cover the afternoon. You can come in with a partner and split it just about any way you like. We'll do all the training. There's a brief classroom training. Then there's 40 hours of practical experience that we conduct with you, supervise with you. And again, we'll provide all the equipment as well. So, it's you get paid for it, and it certainly helps out the community as well. But again, in any conversations, if you folks would be so kind to maybe just put that out there, and they can either contact me directly or right to Sergeant Murray as well, who's in charge of our crossing guards.
Thanks, Chief.
Yep. And lastly, over the past month to 2 months, we've had several stolen cars and burglaries to cars. So we've had, since August, we've had 7 cars stolen in Princeton. Thankfully, we've been able to recover 6 of them. And we've also had 6 burglaries or 6 thefts from inside of motor vehicles. All of these have occurred because the vehicles have been unlocked, and the ones that have been stolen, the keys were left inside the car. So, I implore everyone to don't leave any valuables in your car. Please take the keys inside. There's definitely people coming through Princeton because they're learning that it's somewhat of a vulnerable town, that people leave their cars unlocked and at times will leave their keys in the car. And with some of the newer cars, they can tell by the outside whether or not the keys are inside the car just by the rear view mirrors, which if they're opened or not. So it's very easy for them to drive down the street and tell right away whether or not that car is unsecured. So again, just bring your valuables inside and bring your keys inside as well. And, that's obviously the best way to solve this. And again, this is our July report that we've submitted. We actually just completed the August one, but I wasn't able to get it into the agenda soon enough. But tomorrow morning, we will go ahead and we'll put the report on the website. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for the chief? Leticia?
Not question, comment. Thank you for that report. I'm looking forward to seeing the August one as well. But you had already shared with us about how thieves looking to steal cars, it's so easy for them to just drive down and see which ones have the keys in them. But also because I know it's been in the news a lot about the theft of mails from mailboxes.
Yep.
And I still continue to see many of our residents who are conned into giving or sending someone gift cards and just count out of just thousands of dollars. If we could keep reminding folks on how to avoid those scams.
Yeah, so you're completely right, Leticia. It's almost weekly that we see a scam similar to that. And quite frankly, they keep occurring because they're very successful. So, we need to find better ways to educate our community so that they understand that these are potential scams. There's also a lot of identity theft, and quite frankly, a lot of this theft and fraud takes place even outside the country. So you're very limited in your investigations. Just touching back on the mailboxes, we have been in contact with the post office. They've gone ahead and rearranged the slots so that they're more secure in around the CBD. And we're also trying to get them to make some modifications to the other mailboxes around town as well.
Great. Thank you, Chief.
Sure.
Thank you. Eve?
It's a separate question and a quick follow-up. I myself was the victim of an attempted identity theft. Somebody filed for unemployment on my behalf. And I went to the police station and an officer helped me fill out the form, just, in case in the future there's any harm done to me, that I have presented that claim to the police. So I'm just going to relay what the chief said to me. If you are the victim of any kind of scam like that, it is important, even if you may not get the money back, but it is really important to make a report, because that protects you going forward with credit bureaus and with your bank and everything. My question was of a totally different nature. So I've noticed that there have been no use of force incidents this year, which is absolutely fabulous. And I wonder how you would explain that. Is that a result of improved de-escalation training? Is it just a matter of circumstance that these incidents haven't come up? I'd be interested to hear you just speak about that for a moment.
Yeah, well, to be quite honest, Eve, I think it's a combination of the two, if I'm being completely honest. One, if you look back at the history of our use of force, a lot of it is dealing with people that are in crises, where we need to get them help and they may not be in the right frame of mind to understand that. And then we need to be able to secure them and get them, into the back of the ambulance and on a stretcher. And then our officers at times, depending on the level of force, would fill out a use of force for that. But also I do have to attribute it to some of our de-escalation training. And I think a big part of that is now with our training center, right? We'll be there on Thursday for our public safety committee. And we'll demonstrate some of the virtual reality training where a lot of the scenarios are de-escalation techniques. So we've been doing that de-escalation techniques for a while, and we do a lot of refresher training with it. And then we have the opportunity to take the classroom experience and you take them to a virtual reality where they have to then put into practical application. I think it just intensifies the training even more. And I think you're seeing the results of that.
Thank you, Chief. Any other comments or questions for the chief? Okay. Thanks again, Chief.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
You too. All right, we'll move on to the 2020 audit. And Sandy or Bernie, who's taking the lead on?
Sandy, I'm hoping.
I'm sorry, Dave Gannon will.
Okay. Hey, Dave.
Hi, good evening. How are you?
Good.
So yeah, my name is Dave Gannon. I was partner in charge of the municipality's audit this past year. First, I just want to say, we received excellent cooperation from the employees of the municipality. Most of our work was done on site this year. Our audit does last about 4 weeks of time. So there's always a significant amount of information that we're required to get from the employees of the municipality. So in addition to all their other job responsibilities, in addition to just dealing with COVID and those circumstances. So I always like to just thank the town's employees for their excellent cooperation. The audit has been filed by the deadline. The deadline statutorily is June 30th, but for the second year in a row, it has been pushed back to September 30th. One, due to the effects of COVID-19, but also the state continues to provide certain information that's required to be in every municipal report very late, in June. So they've been pushing the deadline back. Important to remember when we do our audit, the financial statements that are filed with the division and the town are not in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. There's a whole set of other accounting principles that the state requires all local government to follow. That's called the regulatory basis of accounting. We've issued an unmodified opinion on the municipality's financial statements. So what that means is that the municipality is following all the required financial requirements promulgated by the division, all the numerous disclosures that are required. And really, what we found is that overall, the municipality's financial records are in really very excellent condition. Sandy Webb and her team really do a really great job. So also, and I'll be brief, but the financial, the municipality is very healthy financially. The current fund balance was $18.9 million, which was an increase of $2.1 million from the prior year. There are certain measures that the state allowed all local government to employ if they had revenue shortfalls, which was called basically COVID special emergencies. If there's any shortfalls, they allowed local government to defer those out to 5 years. So it didn't have a significant impact on fund balance of the municipality. Princeton didn't have to employ that. They were able to, make financial decisions to cover shortfalls, cancel certain appropriations. Overall, the municipality did a really good job of reacting to the conditions financially and making sure that it didn't impact the municipality adversely. The affordable housing utility fund balance was $868,000, which was an increase from the prior year when it was $705,000. $4.3 million in program reserves. The parking utility had $1.6 million of fund balance, which was relatively the same as the prior year, which again is impressive since that all parking utilities, around the state really had significant issues with obviously less usage. 2020 tax collection rate was 99.32%. The municipality continued to have a strong tax collection percentage, at least over the last 5 years. It's always been over 99%. Continue that in 2020. Gross debt of the municipality at the end of the year was $105 million. 95.5 was net debt, or 1.15%. Just to compare that, the statutory limit of net debt could be 3.5%. You're at 1.15. So it gives you an idea that you're significantly under your statutory allowance for debt. Your remaining borrowing power was $207 million. Not that as an account I would ever recommend that you would even encroach upon that, but again, it gives you an idea of how much lower your debt is overall. One of the other reports that we issued is according to government warning standards. In that, if we had any significant findings, material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, we would communicate that to you. We didn't find any of those within the municipality. In fact, we didn't have any findings that require corrective action. Again, our audit lasts about 4 weeks, and we do a number of tests over internal controls, a number of tests to test statutory compliance. There's a lot of statutes and regulations that the state requires. Our test didn't disclose any violations of those. So if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions? Michelle?
That's great news. Not surprisingly, we know what a wonderful team we have, and we really appreciate it. I just wanted to just go back. So you said that the debt, what is the debt amount that we could take on versus where we are right now? Because we've kind of had some conversations recently about that, because we are running into now our obligation on our affordable housing, and we will be doing one of the bond ordinances tonight. So we just wanted to kind of have an idea of where we are with that. Could you just repeat that part, Dave?
Yeah, sure.
The
total amount of net debt you could have would be approximately $313 million. You have $105 million. So your remaining capacity is $207 million.
Okay. Not that we'd ever do that, but just to have an idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you think we're in healthy shape then? We're taking a third of that possibility.
Yeah, the municipality is definitely in very healthy condition.
Good. It's good to hear, and really appreciate that. That's it. I just wanted to clarify that piece.
Yeah, I think, Dave, first of all, thank you for the audit report and for doing the audit. But Sandy, amazing the condition that we're in financially, considering all that's gone on in the last year and a half or so. to see that we're so healthy, to see that there's no recommendations in the audit report at all. So it just goes to show that everything that you are doing in your world, all your processes and procedures are top notch. And so thank you very much. It's very impressive.
Thank you.
And thank you to the council members, previous councils, and all their hard work, and the previous mayor. We've really, it's been a good foundation to build on.
Yeah, thank you, Sandy. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Okay, no other questions or comments for Dave or Sandy, because then I'll take us into the resolution 21305, where we accept the 2020 audit and group affidavit, which is in your package on page 287 in the package. Eve, are you moving that?
No, I just had a,
Sorry.
maybe I'll move it, and then I have a tiny point.
Okay, is there a second? All right, David has the second, Eve has the motion. Go ahead, Eve.
I mentioned this to Dolores in an email, but the second page of the resolution still says something about the county freeholders rather than commissioners. So just, at some point before that gets moved on, that should be updated.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments before we vote on this resolution? All right, seeing none, all in favor of the resolution accepting the audit report, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it. That's everybody. Thank you. Dave, thanks again. Thank you, Sandy. All right, our next item under announcements and reports is update on streetscape design guidelines for Nassau Street and proposed capital improvement projects. Hi, Deanna.
Hi, good evening. I'm just going to share my screen and give you a very short report on the streetscape. Okay, here we go. So many of you were not on council when we had a joint project between Princeton University, Princeton Historic Preservation, in coordination with our consultant, Looney Ricks Kiss, to prepare a set of design standards for Nassau Street. So what I have on this slide is just the cover sheet from the design standards. Council received the final report in the fall of 2016 and accepted it early in 2017. This is available. Let me see if I can get it to move. Okay, so it is available on our municipal website for any of you that would like to go through and look at it in more detail. You can search just using Nassau, and it pops up. The website address is at the bottom of the page. But it's quite an extensive list of pedestrian oriented improvements for Nassau Street, where we go into detail on the sidewalks, the sidewalk materials, crosswalk street lighting, all the way down to newspaper racks, benches, outdoor dining. Quite a bit of detail is contained in the report, like I said, prepared by Looney Ricks Kiss. And so the engineering department has been starting to implement the streetscape guidelines. We had initially envisioned trying to get like a federal grant or a state grant to do this, but the property is technically located in the state right-of-way. The sidewalk area is state property, not municipal, but jurisdictionally, we are able to make improvements to the sidewalks along Nassau Street. So the first project that we undertook was the sidewalk replacement from 206, Bayard to Bank Street. And with that, we also made the alley improvement that was recommended in the streetscape guidelines at the entrance to Bank Street. The next project we're working on is sidewalk replacement and tree installation from South Tulane to Van Diebender. This was a project we had actually started a year or two ago, and then we realized that the process we had gone through with State Historic Preservation to submit the Streetscape Guidelines and get some sort of approval from them did not replace the requirement for us to submit an application for each and every specific project to install the design standards. So we've got a little delayed, but we are finalizing the state historic application, and we'll work with our local HPC to get feedback on that for this section. The hotel project will be replacing the sidewalk where we ended at Bank Street to Chambers. And as you see here, DOT will be improving the intersection of Nassau and Witherspoon with their traffic signal replacement. And in that, we will be working with them to follow the design guidelines. And so just couple of images for you of what it looks like with what we've done with the replacements. This is Bank Street at Nassau. You see that we have installed this raised pedestrian crosswalk, the alley treatment at Bank Street. And on the second image, it's a little bit tougher to see, but we've replaced the trapezoidal tree wells with tree grates. In this case, they were about 6 foot by 6 foot tree grates. The trees haven't been planted yet, but that will give trees just a better chance at survival in that harsh environment with lots of pedestrians and road salt and everything else. So with that, that's really the presentation. Yep, Michelle?
Yeah, I got a couple questions. And thank you, Deanna. I when you showed that picture just now, it's like a gray pavement, but then on this, like against the building, there's like a piece that's still the concrete beige. Will that stay that way? And is that the way it will look down the street? I mean, how will that integrate into the look?
So that is, what you saw is that's the distinction between the DOT right-of-way versus private ownership. And with grade differentials, we made the determination, at least in this stretch, that we would not replace that piece of the sidewalk because it is on private property. As we move through the other sections, it is something that we can consider working with property owners to see if they would like to replace their sidewalk at the same time. It gets into, the ADA issues and other concerns that with the first project, we didn't want to touch that piece yet.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think if it wasn't gray, if it wasn't two different colors, it wouldn't be obvious. So I don't know, if that was considered, but is gray going to be the color that's determined across the board?
Yes. So even though it didn't look gray in the picture, the old sidewalk material was called French gray. And obviously over time it had changed colors. We are now using landmark gray. So it's a darker, it was chosen to be a closer color to like a bluestone or a slate. And so that is the chosen color that will be used throughout the corridor.
Okay, thanks. And then is there like a timeline, a calendar and a cost projection from a financial standpoint? I'd like to see it get done. And I'm just wondering what our plan is for rolling it out.
Well, this next section from Tulane to Van Diebender, I have about $400,000 of capital funds that are available. And that's what we will be funding that section with. And I have put in line items in the next, I think, each year for the next 3 to 4 years to continue with the completion of the sidewalk, depending on how big of a chunk we want to take. It could be 500,000, it could be up to $1 million, because we will have a gap between Chambers Street and Witherspoon Street at a certain point that will need to be addressed. And that's a more challenging area because the granite curb and the curb ramps do not line up with the crosswalks. And so that will require a little bit more work and more cost.
I'm just wondering, I mean, 3 or 4 years, I mean, it's a long time, it seems like. I mean, I don't know if we can accelerate it by looking at the financials on it and seeing if we can, or is there also a staffing issue with it, or is it just basically funds?
It's funds. I mean, we have a lot of demands for drainage work in town. We've got 120 miles of roadway. We've got Nassau Street sidewalks. So we can work with you to prioritize how our capital funds should be allocated over the next few years. But that's where I was trying to strike a balance of, if we do 500,000 a year, then it can get done over, say, 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, but in the meantime, it's pretty patchy looking, although we're going through a lot of construction phase now too. But as we look at the construction calendar that I mentioned earlier, as we talk about that, maybe we can talk about this kind of holistically so we can make it look, as nice as possible, especially during this time. So I'd be anxious to see it done. So.
Okay.
That's
Michael, I see your face appeared.
Yeah, I was just gonna jump in and add that even though it's not happening all at once, which of course everyone would love, first of all, I'll make the observation that the first section done, that's from Route 206 to Bank Street, I think looks fantastic. So everybody can go out and take a look at it. And then we've got 20 Nassau Street, the hotel project, which will be doing matching work in front of their building. So that's very close to the section that's already been completed up to Bank Street. So I think you'll start seeing sort of a critical mass of this new streetscape form. And then we'll just look for other opportunities where, in addition to the municipality doing sections, we can get, as projects come up, we can get them to do their sections.
Yeah, absolutely. Great.
Thank you. Eve?
Just a quick question. Is this like a 20 years duration? Like once you install it, is it a 20-year, 30-year, 50-year? What's the life expectancy?
I'm trying to think, when was the Nassau Streetscape last installed in the borough? Was that the 80s?
Late 80s.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
shortly after I moved to town, which was 87. So.
Okay. So, I mean, hopefully we don't last this long because it has gotten into disrepair. But I would say 25 years.
Okay, thank you.
Michelle?
I noticed on the list, but I didn't see the design. Are there like new newspaper stands and things like that, like benches, those accoutrements that would make it?
Yes.
Sparkly?
And those are all in there. We've actually as a side project, have been trying to pursue the replacement of the newspaper boxes with this new comprehensive kind of multi-journal newspaper box. But it's a touchy thing to address because of the First Amendment. And, we've tried to reach out to the newspaper vendors. We don't get responses. Some of them have their boxes out there, but they don't necessarily have the license. But so I think that may be an overall discussion that the municipality needs to have as to where and how prevalent do we need to provide the newspaper stands? Because I know with Witherspoon Street, we have talked about potentially not having them on Witherspoon Street in the future. So we can definitely bring that back as a work session and work with legal to get a better understanding of what the constraints might be.
Great. Yeah, good. That would definitely be something that would make it look a lot nicer, and other towns have grappled with that and found solutions. So I'm sure we can find best practices elsewhere to help us. So.
Yeah, the other piece is we've been trying to get rid of some of the old mailboxes. I don't know if people have noticed that there are green mailboxes in addition to the blue mailboxes, and they are a transfer box. And so we were able to get rid of one in the section from Bayard to Bank, but we have them all over town, and it has been challenging to work with the Postal Service to identify which ones can be retired, but we'll continue working on that.
Great. That's excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're
Thank
welcome.
You. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments for Deanna on Nassau Street sidewalks? Okay, great. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Deanna.
Mm-hmm.
We have an award of recognition next. Michelle?
Yes, Dolores, can we bring Carol Golden over? She's as a panelist, please. Adam, if you
Adam
could.
would do that. Yep. Adam.
Sorry, Adam.
Yep, no problem. Bringing you over now.
Thank you.
There she is. Hi, Carol. Can you put your video on?
Carol, you're there. You go.
And I'm now you can hear me and see me.
There you go.
Great. Hi, welcome. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Great. So I'm very pleased this evening on behalf of Mayor and Council. I'm honored to be presenting this award to Carol Golden, recognizing her as a leader in our community. Carol's dedication to helping those in our community with the greatest need, especially through this health crisis, has been exemplary. Her dedication, commitment, and leadership as the chair of the Housing Initiatives of Princeton Charitable Trust, or HIP, as we call it, has helped so many of our residents through this most difficult time. HIP, as a background, helps low-income working families and individuals in and around Princeton avoid homelessness. While providing traditional housing and temporary rental assistance, HIP equips families with tools for self-sufficiency, acting as a bridge between homelessness and hope. As of September 1st, 2021, HIP has distributed over $250,000 in community development block grant funding. They have assisted 60 families representing 188 individuals. Now, there are many individuals who have dedicated time and service to this important cause, but in large part due to Carol's leadership, this effort has been successfully executed and has maximized the potential of these funds to reach the most individuals in our community. Carol's work has been a lifetime of commitment. She formerly served as the chair of the board of trustees of Mercer County Community College, and for many years, Carol was on the board of Planned Parenthood of Northern, Central, and Southern New Jersey, committed to the mission of ensuring quality healthcare to women of New Jersey. Carol also served as co-chair of the board of 101, which was formerly known as the Princeton Regional Scholarship Foundation, which awards scholarships to graduates of Princeton High who need financial assistance to attend college. She also serves on the Princeton Affordable Housing Board. But as we know, it takes a village, and therefore we would also like to acknowledge and thank Carol's family for their support and commitment to the community. Thank you to Carol's husband, Andrew Golden, and their two boys, Jake and Elliot. We're so pleased this evening to recognize Carol Golden with this well-deserved award of recognition. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Go ahead, Carol.
I guess, I don't want to make this meeting any longer than it needs to be. I want to just tell you all how much I appreciate your recognition of my work. And, I wrote back to Michelle and I said, well, I think it's really HIP which is the entity that did all the work. I can't really say I did this by myself by any stretch. We have a really wonderful board, and now we have a new actual executive director. So the HIP, working with the other agencies in town, really did get this work done during the pandemic. But I definitely appreciate your deciding to acknowledge my work and my commitment to the community. It's a pleasure and it's an honor to be part of all the stuff that you guys do. And if I could be a small part of it, I'm happy to do it.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Carol.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I've had the pleasure of working with Carol, both inside and outside of town. Inside of town, of course, Carol serves as an alternate member on the Affordable Housing Board and sort of really a partner between HIP and the Affordable Housing Board. And of course, outside of Princeton, I've had the privilege of sitting on the Board of Trustees over at Mercer County College with Carol. So it's always a pleasure to work with Carol, who brings this compassion and high caliber to all the work she does, and particularly for our most vulnerable populations. So thanks, Carol.
Thanks, Wayne.
Eve.
Appreciate it.
I also want to add my thanks, Carol. We've known each other a long time, and you've been a leader and an advocate for children and others for 20 plus years that I know of, and probably before that I don't. And it is always a pleasure to work with you in any capacity. You're a person of incredible integrity and dedication. And when your name comes up, it always makes me happy. So, because you just do such good work for our community. So thank you so much from all of us.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks.
Any other council good wishes or congratulations? And
Always congratulations, Carol. I want to say, I just want to add to what everybody else said, was that before I even met you, Carol, I already admired you. And getting to know you over the years, I'm just in awe of everything that you do. And I think you inspire, I know you inspire all of us to want to do more. Thank you.
Thanks, Leticia. Appreciate it.
Okay, Mia?
Beyond Carol's work in affordable housing, I just wanted to highlight another aspect of her contribution to the community, which is that for those who don't know, Carol is a sounding board for many people in positions of decision-making, key decision-making capacities throughout the community, who seek out her very wise counsel on every possible issue and controversy and all the various obstacles that we face as a community towards moving forward, and her counsel is held in extremely high regard because she's just knows how to give good advice. So thank you for being one of the tribal elders, Carol. We appreciate it.
Okay, I guess I'll take the elders part. Thanks. Got the hair to show it. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks you very much. This is very, very, very meaningful. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Carol. Thanks for joining us. Have a good evening.
Take care, everybody. Have a good meeting. Rest of your meeting.
Yeah.
Carol, you can stick around if you want to. I mean.
Carol's smart. She knows not to hang around for the rest of the meeting unless she really wants to, which I. Thanks again. All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Moving on. We have a presentation, Board of Health proposing the establishment of a structural racism task force to help address racism as a public health crisis.
And Mayor, if I may, I just want to remind everyone that just a few weeks ago, actually could have been months, a couple of months maybe, that a subcommittee of the Board of Health came to a council meeting and during a work session to talk about an initiative that they were working on to help address racism and as a public health crisis. And as a result of feedback that they received also from the Civil Rights Commission, Not in Our Town, other community partners, they developed a resolution that the Board of Health adopted at their September 14th meeting. And we've invited Daryl Penn, who heads that subcommittee that worked on this, to give us a brief presentation on it and also answer any questions you may have. Daryl, welcome.
Terrific. No, thank you so much for that introduction, and certainly a tough act to follow after all the accolades for Carol there. Very, very impressive. Congratulations to her. Someone I haven't met yet, but soon I hope I have a chance to interact and meet with her. So Councilman Frog, I think you've really kind of summed it up well. So I'll keep my comments very brief. But first, thanks for having me. And I also want to thank this body for taking up this issue in a very serious way. You certainly took the bold action previously of declaring racism a public health issue, a public health emergency, and so I think it speaks volumes around the courageous behavior that this body is willing to take around these issues. Also, I want to take a moment to thank Councilwoman Fraga for all her guidance and leadership and coaching around how to shepherd this really through the process. She really has helped to set this up for success, and very much appreciative of her efforts. So in short, and again, I'm going to keep my comments very brief here, the resolution states our agreement with what was previously approved or put forth by this body. And it really asks that you consider two steps, take two steps forward, major steps, I would say. And one is to really stand up a task force that would be really empowered to really bring the different stakeholders, community stakeholders and partners together and community members together in order to tackle what is a very significant and complicated issue. And it really requires us all to work collectively in order to address it. And the second piece is it asks that the focus really be on structural and systemic racism. And I do think that's an important frontier, particularly at this moment in time, for us to think about and consider, and for that body to focus its work on. And so we did create a bit of a playbook for the committee to consider, but we didn't want to be too scriptive in what it was that we were putting forth or proposing as a Board of Health. We certainly are looking forward to being a part of that task force and hoping to help to advance some of the things that we see from our perspective, as well as contribute to some of the issues that cross all the respective spaces that we hope are represented on that task force. And so with that, let me pause here and certainly address any questions or answers that you may all have. Again, to Councilwoman Frogger's point, we did have the chance to present more formally some of the material that helped guide our thinking, as well as the resolution. Previously, there have not been many changes other than adding other groups that we felt were important to consider. And I should say in the resolution, it's certainly not comprehensive, that there are certainly other groups that should be considered. I was at a program just last night with High Tops, and they're doing certainly amazing work, and that's the kind of organizations that I think should be part of these kinds of efforts. So with that, I'll pause and certainly entertain any questions that council and mayor may have at this time.
Thank you, Daryl. Council, Eve?
Hi, Daryl. Thank you for being here tonight. And I don't have any specific questions, but I'm thrilled to see this coming up. And I really want to commend one particular point, which is the concept of offering honoraria for people to participate, because it is not a level playing field. And some of us, most of us who are here have either it's our jobs or we have the ability to take a couple of hours away from family and jobs. to be at something like this, but that is not true for everyone. And if you want equal participation, you have to be able to pony up some money so that people can participate. So I know that that is something that we've tried to do in the Sustainable Landscaping Initiative with our landscapers to pay them for their participation. And so I just really want to applaud you for that point in particular. I think it's really essential.
Thank you so much for your comment, and that's certainly something that we wanted to put forth, and we felt it really allowed us to walk the walk, if you will, and really level that playing field. To your point, it really is a privilege for many who can participate in these kinds of environments. There's some that can't afford childcare, need it in order for them to participate, or they're not afforded time off of work, and so it comes at an expense out of their pockets. Now, we do recognize that there are inherent challenges with implementing this kind of initiative, but we are hopeful that that council mayor and others will consider paths forward that will allow for some compensation for those that through a means test. This would not be for everybody. It would not be for everyone who serves. It would be for those who need, in fact, that kind of support in order to help with their participation. But thank you so much, Councilwoman Gang, for your point.
Other council questions or comments?
For your work on this.
Sorry, Dwayne?
I just want to thank Darryl for all his work.
Oh, okay.
Thanks.
All right. So I'm sorry. Go ahead, Leticia.
No, sorry. I don't know if there were no other questions or comments. My question would be, and this perhaps might be to Trishka, our council, as how we would move forward in this. This came from the Board of Health. And do we go back to the Board of Health to work on or does council now decide whether we want to establish this task force? I just was hoping for some guidance on this.
Yeah, this would be a council decision at this point, whether or not to establish a task force. And you've established many task forces over the past few months, so it would be the same process. Figure out, what the mission is of the task force, what the deliverables are, how many members, who, from which constituencies, all of the different parameters as you've done with your other task force. So it wouldn't be something obviously to take action on tonight, but it is something that if the council wanted to just assign a couple of members to work on and then bring a resolution forward at an upcoming meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Michelle? Sorry.
Yeah, and and also I would just say, if you're going to take it back and work out more of the details, is also in terms of a budget and in terms of the honoraria and what that would look like, what the criteria would be for the honoraria. I mean, I think it's a really good point that we always assume people can make that commitment, but it's not always.
I would just want to make sure first that there's even the ability to offer that.
Yeah. So I would look at that part of it. And then, like Trishka said, the deliverables of what, the organization is doing. We certainly want to see this be successful. And also I would think that there's other task forces and other things that this will intersect with, where some of the recommendations can also take into consideration some of the other work that these other task forces are working on. I think of the Cannabis Task Force, the Community Center Feasibility Task Force. This all kind of can intersect as well and help inform each other. So I think it's terrific. Thank you.
Okay, so to get to the next steps, who do we have? One or two council people that want to work with Darryl and work through Bernie to figure out who we need to involve so we can come back to council at some point in the near future with an actual detailed recommendation as to what the task force will do, what it's responsible for, goals and things like that?
Well, I would want to take part in that, but also welcome somebody else, one of my colleagues. Dwayne, I see you.
Even though stress so thin, I'm about to pop, but I'll put that extra measure in there.
Thank you, Dwayne.
Thank you, Dwayne, because otherwise I'd have to step up and I just don't have anything left to give. So thank you.
I'm at the
Okay.
extent of my bandwidth, but I'll do it.
Yeah, don't
Okay.
pop, Dwayne. Don't pop on us. You only got a few months left, buddy. Hang in there.
I know, man.
So
All right.
I'll be following up then, and obviously also Daryl will bring you in that conversation.
All right.
Okay.
And Bernie will be involved. in
And
that
Bernie, yes,
conversation,
of
just
course.
to direct to whatever
Yes.
staff support needed.
Certainly.
Okay. Mia?
Yeah, I just wanted to underscore Michelle's point, which I thought was a really good one. We I think often create new task forces and then task forces upon task forces. And I think this does really, this does really intersect with a number of other task forces. So I would love to see built into the sort of the bones of the task force. And when it comes back to council, the description of how actually, the mechanisms will be that it will intersect and, interface with the other task forces, because I think that's really important.
Okay. All right. So I think we
I'm
have,
sorry, and just to add our BCCs as well. I mean, health, obviously, but, civil rights and human services. So, yeah.
Yes.
okay. Daryl, thanks again. Anything else to add? I think we have a clear avenue forward.
Nothing further, just my continued thanks for your efforts here and your leadership around this issue and your commitment to ensuring its success. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Daryl.
Yeah. Thanks for your time, Daryl. Okay. Thank you, Leticia and Dwayne. All right. As we had mentioned kind of towards the beginning of the meeting, the next item, the facilities RFP, was taken off the agenda. That needs a little bit more work, and that'll come back at a future date. The next item is titled Bin Blocks Update. And my recollection is that the last time we talked about the bin blocks on Witherspoon Street and what was going to happen or not happen with them is that we did say we were going to come back and discuss whether they stay as they are today, or do we move them and make some other changes to reflect the design of Witherspoon Street so that we have a period of time where we can actually test the final design and see how it works. And if there's anything that we need to consider before construction begins, that we'd have the opportunity to do that before instead of after construction.
Mayor,
So-
could you just explain for those who don't know exactly what is meant by bin blocks? Because
Yep.
it's not necessarily obvious. Thank you.
Yep. So the bin blocks are the concrete green blocks, some of which have little vines and things painted on them, but they are the concrete blocks on Witherspoon Street, which define areas that cars should not go in and help protect some of our outdoor dining areas and things like that. So they're the green blocks out in the street on Witherspoon Street. Michelle.
So my recollection of the last conversation on this at council was that we were going to take it back and look at ordinancing for deliveries before we could do anything. Because without an ordinance for deliveries and without deciding if there's parking or not parking or temporary, we cannot just move the bin blocks the way that it is right now without an ordinance. And since we're almost in October, we're probably talking about a couple months of having the bin blocks there before we take them away and start construction. So I'm opening it up, but I don't really see where this can be done in time to really make any sense of it, since we have no ordinance for deliveries. And we would really need to have some discussions with the community, the business community, on what that timing would be. I mean, we have our ideas, but we also heard last time that there are certain restrictions and certain things that we'd have to take into consideration. So I think we're just a far away from just moving the bin blocks to see how it would work, and and creating more chaos on a street without having any other regulations.
I'll reserve my comments till a few more council people have just said their thoughts. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I think that one of the problems with the idea of testing out the design with the bin blocks is we've been really thinking about this very vehicular centric and not in terms of the other roadway users, whether it's pedestrians or the outdoor dining. The bin blocks are pretty fat and they take up a lot of space. And we could define the vehicular space with the bin blocks, but we would then be not testing out the other features of the design because of the way that they impinge on the remaining available space. So I just want to put out there that I think that we're betraying our, our sort of vehicularist tendencies, and that if you really want to be even-handed about all roadway users, that it's really tough to test out this design and really find out how it works for everybody using bin blocks. So that's my comment.
Okay, thank you. I would suggest that the ordinancing of trying to reflect what we hope might happen with a delivery/parking area does not need to be in place today, because we could simply, in order to test the majority of the design, is designate here's delivery zones and here's parking zones. I would also say, since we're going to spend a hell of a lot of money, and that a number of people are hoping that we have the ability in the future, if needed, to change what's happening with traffic on Witherspoon Street, that not to make every effort to test the design before it is built does not make a lot of sense. And if we think testing the design is going to be a hardship, then what are we saying about the design itself? Because then I think we're saying the design itself is going to be a hardship. So I'm just concerned that we're missing a golden opportunity here, and that we should take advantage of that opportunity and find a way to test the design before it's actually built. That's my thought. Eve?
Thanks, Mayor. I appreciate your comment, and I think in the best of all possible worlds, it would be great to test it out ahead of time. But I think that two things. I think to arbitrarily sort of say, well, we're going to set loading zones up here when that's not actually going to be where the loading zones are, sort of takes away from, then you're not really testing the design. You're testing something that's kind of arbitrary. And I think the other thing is that there is really, picking up on what David said, there is really no way you're only testing out the vehicle movements. You can't test any of the other aspects out. And because, we're not going to have the street plantings and the streetscape in there. And so it seems to me that, you get a lot of what you're testing are the points of the proposed design that that without the rest of the design, you're taking certain aspects of the design to test, but without having the context of the entire design, I don't think it can be a fair test of the design. So I just think we're setting up a test that I think has kind of no validity. There's no point of comparison to what it will really be like. I mean, I defer to Deanna on this, but it doesn't seem like we can really, or Michael, that we can really create what we're going to create through a year and a half or 2 years of construction by moving a few pieces of concrete around. So I'd have to hear, I understand your concern, and I share that concern, but I just don't think that this is a reasonable and fair test the way I see it. But Michael or Deanna, either one of you want to jump in or not?
Michael, did you want to say anything? Yeah, your face popped up, so.
Yeah, I think that David made a really good point about the thickness of the blocks really kind of keeps you from having a true representation of what the different spaces will be, the pedestrian spaces and non-vehicular spaces and the vehicular space. So I think we should just press forward with the project and get this thing moving. That would be my opinion.
I will just say this, with all due respect, I don't think the thickness of the blocks makes a damn difference. a darn difference. Let's be serious. What we're going to do is if we use the blocks or some other method, you would define, here's the lane for parking and loading. Here's the lane for travel. And oh, by the way, here's how wide the pedestrian areas are going to be. People are going to get a great sense of how all those areas are going to work. So I'm not going to beat this to death, but again, before we spend an awful lot of money, we have an opportunity to make sure there's no tweaks to the design that we should consider before they're built. Kind of hard to understand the logic not to do it. But anyway, Leticia and then Dwayne.
Yes, so I was always under the impression that the bin blocks were there to, as a safety for pedestrians. So that my concern in removing them, unless we're saying that the diners will not longer be able to be out there, I would be concerned about removing them without having those safety measures in place.
Just to be clear, just to make sure I hear you and you heard me, what I'm suggesting is the bin blocks be reallocated or reshuffled to reflect the final design. So where there's going to be outdoor dining or whatever it is, they will define the edge of that. And then in between will be the parking and travel lanes. So I just want to make sure I'm addressing what you said.
And I did want to then understand what exactly is, if it's taking away space that's already being used by removing them.
It may do that. I haven't calculated inch for inch the entire roadway, but there's parking spaces we're adding in front of the library and I think on the other side of the street. So it's going to impact some of the existing outdoor dining, I would think. Okay, Dwayne had his hand up and then we'll get back to, I think Mia had her hand up earlier. So let me do Dwayne, Mia, Michelle, and Deanna, and hopefully I remember that order. Go ahead, Dwayne.
I'm going to cast my lot with the mayor on this one. To me, it seems like a great idea that we have the blocks out there. We're going to spend a lot of money, just like the mayor. I'm thinking the same thing before the mayor said it, but we're planning to spend a lot of money on the new streetscape. So why not just take I don't see what the problem is by using the blocks to kind of create a scenario that looks like what the end result is going to be. I hear what some of my colleagues have said. It doesn't have to be a perfect test, but it may be a test enough for us to figure out some pros and cons, like, hey, this didn't work out well or whatever. It's not the first time we've done studies that weren't 100% scientific. In fact, talking about the same subject, we did a study where we polled a lot of Princetonians to find out if they wanted to make it a closed off pedestrian promenade. One could argue that wasn't the most scientific test in the world, but it did give us a good idea of what many Princetonians want or don't want. So in this case, Mayor, I'm supporting you on this, Mayor, that I think it's a good idea for us to do that reallocation, get an idea of what it's going to look like, and we may learn some things before we put all the money in.
Okay, Amelia, you were next.
Well, I did think that we had exactly this conversation at a previous council meeting with the only difference that Dwayne cast his vote in the opposite direction last time.
No, I did not. What I said was I voted to hold off because my question was whether or not there was any danger in holding off. Believe me, I didn't switch sides. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I will say the same thing that I said last time, that I think that it's not a real test because it's just it's a test of the pain part, but not the pleasure part. So it's not a real test. I know that the merchants have said that they feel like they would like to keep because right now what we have is not the plan that we will have. What we have now is the COVID accommodations. And I think that, at least what I've heard from merchants is that they would like to keep the things that they do have now in terms of the interspersed parking as long as possible. I do see your point, Mark. I think, this is a much larger conversation than we can really have in the context of this meeting, but I would suggest why don't we take a vote and see where see where it
Oh.
lies.
Yeah, so let me just make sure everybody gets to make their comments, but the council has the luxury of taking a vote or just saying, move on, right? Because you guys vote. I don't vote unless there's a tie. But anyway.
Maybe there'll be a tie and then you can vote, but at least.
There you
know-
go. Oh, yeah, I don't think that's
I
going to
just
happen.
don't want to discuss it at a third council meeting because I thought we already discussed and we reached it, so
Yeah.
I feel like we should come to some decision.
All right, well, I have Michelle, Deanna, and David on my list to say something, so we'll hit them and then we'll move on one way
Yeah.
or the other. Go ahead, Michelle.
I just want to make sure it's clear. Without ordinancing the trucks, you have trucks all day long, so you don't have a time frame. There's already a lot of congestion. Moving the blocks to give a little bit more width would be okay. But what the mayor is suggesting here is to actually put the bump outs in a white bin block. So you're going to look like a construction zone, and then moving the parking meters over to stick on the bin blocks. So aesthetically, if we think it doesn't look nice now, aesthetically, it would look really terrible. So you're adding more pain to a situation already. So I think that, we could move the bin blocks over a little bit to give a little more width for trucks to get by, like it will be. But doing those bump outs would really be difficult. And I don't see the point of doing that unless we can really regulate when the trucks are there or not there. So I think there's also other things we're going to talk about, turning radius and so on. But I'll let Deanna maybe share her screen. You can see what I mean by the white. You'll have white bin blocks, you'll have green bin blocks, I just don't see the point of doing a test to, on a business community that's already gone through a lot and is about to go through a year of construction, so that we can test out something we know we're going to do. I mean, if you really want to get examples, let's look at other towns. I mean, we're going backwards to say we're not sure of what we're doing.
That's the problem. We are sure of what we're doing, but it'd be nice to know that it actually works. Anyway. And I don't know that we decided any colors for bin blocks depending where they are, but maybe. But I hadn't heard that conversation yet. Deanna, why don't you go? Then we'll get to David, and then we'll wrap this up.
Great, thank you. I'm not going to share my screen, Michelle. It is included in the agenda packet if people are interested in seeing what the design is. But David and Eve both made great points that this design is a shift from the way we have operated in the past, that it is not a vehicle-centric design. It will be a pedestrian space. And unfortunately, we used the bin blocks because that was the easiest available. And at the time, from a safety standpoint, we felt that that was appropriate. Moving them now, with only say 2 months of time to gauge what impact that makes. I don't know about you, but I found that when we first implemented this back in 2020, it took more than 2 months for people to adjust, and some people still haven't adjusted. So I don't know from a time frame that this is going to give us enough time, even if we all agreed that it made sense to have any realistic data from it. We're really losing the benefit. If we did it now, we don't have the improvements to the landscaping. We don't have the shift of where the dining areas would be, because in the new design, all of the dining is adjacent to the building. Well, if we did that, then we would be directing people off of curbs into the roadway that's protected by bin blocks. So I think at this point we should just stay where we are and get ready for construction next year.
Right. I would just say, I think we'd have 3 months, but anyway, and I'm not sure what the difference is between somebody walking next to a bin block versus sitting next to it, but okay, point taken, I guess. David?
Yeah, actually, Deanna just made a couple of the points that I was going to make about what it would really mean to test out the entire configuration, move the dining and move the pedestrians. I will say, I think that it would, if we move the dining against the buildings, it would be a pretty dangerous situation because servers will be right at the edge of the curb trying to, move around the tables. Ideally, pedestrians would understand to walk in the street, but because it's at a different level and a different material than they're used to walking on, I think that's the kind of thing that would be terribly difficult to communicate to help people understand how to use the space, except for the drivers. That goes back to the idea that we're talking about testing out something, how it works for vehicles without really thinking through how to test it out, for the other roadway users who are just as or more important than the vehicles. Or, this is really about people, not about cars. So.
Okay. Sensing a lack of enthusiasm and the lack of a motion that's going to happen to say, hey, let's do something other than what we're doing today. Why don't we move on? Unless someone wants to correct me. All right, cool. Next up, public comments for items not on the agenda. So anyone in the public that has a comment, again, for something not on the agenda, 3 minutes on your topic, say your name and address. And Adam, please bring in the first person with their hand up.
Okay, first we have Anita.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I would like to ask some questions about the status.
Anita, can you just, for the record, so we have it, could you say your name and address?
Anita Garoniak, 1 Harris Road.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask some questions about the proposed permit parking plan and the status thereof. I'm hearing a lot of different things and I'd like some clarity. Kind of 4 basic questions. One is we're hearing that after retaining counsel, the western section is no longer being considered in the plan. 2, we hear that there will be meetings with the remaining neighborhoods that are still in the plan. Would like to understand that. I hear that there have been, as the mayor said at the beginning of the meeting, that there's been an arrangement with Westminster Choir College to provide spaces for commercial parking. We'd like more information on that. In spite of that, the high school neighborhood is still being considered to be part of the permit parking plan, even though it's very unpopular. So those are my basic questions. I just would like an update on those. Thank you.
Sure. Would someone from the
Mayor, if I may, I'm also going to ask my colleagues who are on the permit parking task force to add to this anything I may have missed. Regarding the permit parking, the status is we have continued to meet. We have the task force has taken into consideration the feedback that we have received to date, but we also agreed that we still need to collect more data. We still need to do another, it was always our intention to conduct another community-wide meeting for the community to present what we have, our update of what we have worked on, and also to solicit more feedback. We have discussed the western section. I know I have not, it's not my intention to have the western section off the table, but just to have permit parking there is something that that's why we're bringing it back to the entire community, all the neighborhoods, not just one by one. And then I'll let Michelle speak as to the any parking arrangement with the Westminster, and the high school is still, we're still discussing that and looking at the task force is still considering recommendations for the different neighborhoods that we have considered. David and Michelle?
Go ahead, David. You want to do it first?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a couple of comments. I just had a meeting this weekend with a couple of residents in the high school neighborhood who were specifically advocating for getting included in the permit parking. So I just want to make sure that Anita's representation doesn't necessarily, reflect what a lot of people in that neighborhood want. Similarly, we have heard from residents in the western section who are eager to have the permit parking for its traffic calming benefits. Certain streets in the western section have less off-street parking than others, and they have a desire to have overnight permits when they have out-of-town visitors and so forth. So really, a lot of this stuff is still up in the air, and really we're interested in continuing to try and find a solution that satisfies as many residents as we can.
Yeah, in terms of the western section, I think we decided at the task force last time we were going to talk and look at this on a street by street basis in the western section, because some of, like David just mentioned, that some of the neighbors, residents were interested in having it. So we thought we would take it street by street. In terms of the Westminster, I think at this point, since the deal's not signed yet with Ryder, I hesitate to say what the number of parking, because we're still negotiating that contract, but the idea is that this will be a model for a shared lot agreement so that we can offer that for employee parking. We need, employee parking, and that, that was, I thought, one of the takeaways of the community meetings was that we should do more shared lot agreements. So we've been, hot on the trail of pursuing that type of thing. And this is the first of hopefully others that we can consider. So that's the idea there. Did I answer all the questions that came up?
Thank you. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for those answers. I think what I should do, and I haven't done, and I did promise to do, is send you the update of the petition, because we're still continuing to get signers, specifically in the high school neighborhood.
Yes, Anita, and it would be good to know the specific objections, and so that we can work together for a compromise solution to figure out, because there are people that there's a certain need that is a neighborhood that has permits now, and there's a certain need there. So we need to figure out what would be the best solutions there.
Okay, I can tell you that I've heard from a lot of people who think the best solution is what we have now, but I will solicit some input.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. Okay, Adam, who's next?
Mia had something.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. Mia?
Well, I'm not a member of the public, but I had a question related to Anita's question. Can I ask that now, or should I just wait?
Well, this is public comment section, so.
Okay, I'll wait. If no, I'll wait till, go ahead. Yeah, I'll wait.
Yeah, let's just get the public part done, and then we'll get back to you. I'm sorry, Adam, who was next?
Bringing over Alice.
Okay.
Okay, unmute. Hello. I would like to second what Anita said. She's
Alice?
Yes.
Alice,
51 Hawthorne Avenue, Princeton, New Jersey, 08540. One block away from the high school. Years ago, we fought tooth and nail to try to get a good solution for Hawthorne Avenue so that we would be able to function at all. And we got it. And we're very happy with it. And I don't know anybody who wants to have people from Nassau Street or all over the map paying money to park in front of our house and messes up in the ways that you're describing. And I need that space in front of our house to be able to function. My husband got practically suicidal and apoplectic the last time this whole thing came up, and he thought it was solved and that we were through with this mess. And now he's just about ready to shoot himself because it's going to happen all over again. And Anita is absolutely right. I don't know anybody around here who wants to have people parking in front of their house and messing up things. We already got plenty of problems without that. And we particularly have the problem because we're right on the corner. So that we're the first space that everybody wants to sit in, because that's the easiest place to get to the high school from, or to get to Nassau Street, or to get from any place else. I have, not only I've always been a little bit hobbled, but now I have an injury. My femur broke a few months ago. Now I'm really in bad shape. I need that car to be out in front of our house all the time, or I cannot function. And that is what my husband is so worried about. He's practically, he's just going crazy. So, he has to be someplace else right now, or he'd be here ranting also. And I'm sorry if I sound like a lunatic, but this would destroy us. It really, 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 really would destroy us. Please do not change anything. We need it to be the way it is. We worked very hard for it. It's a good solution. Everybody in the street loves it. And Anita is absolutely right. And please stop doing this to us. Do we have to move away from Princeton altogether?
Okay, Alice, thank you. And I do hope you get a complete recovery from your.
So do I, but it's not going to happen right away, and it sure won't happen if I have to crawl on my hands and knees out to the back of the house to get into my car.
Yep. Okay. Do we have, this is really the opportunity for the public to make comments. We don't have to go in depth back and forth. I mean, I think people share their opinion.
Okay, let me just say, and Alice, I owe you a call. We will speak soon. I don't want you to your health to be in jeopardy over this. That's why we have the deal that we're working with Ryder that will help alleviate the employee.
Good. That's what we thought. We thought this was a done deal. My husband was a little bit happier about at least that issue. And now he's back in the dumps again, thinking, oh my God, it's going to be another months and months and months of battles.
I don't want to upset you and your husband. So let's talk soon so we can make sure that everybody's on the same page. So
thank you.
All right, please. Thank you, Alice.
Thank you. Okay. Adam, I don't see any other hands up. Do you?
No, Mayor, no other hands.
Okay. Mia, did you have something related to this or?
I did. So, we had the Westminster Parking on the agenda tonight, and my understanding from my colleagues on the task force was that the reason why we were going to be paying for the Westminster Parking was because it would basically that the point of Westminster was that it was a response to opposition from some neighborhoods, and so particularly the high school neighborhood, and that's how it was presented, is that it would be sort of a valve so that the parking that was going to be put in the high school neighborhood would be put in Westminster instead. So I'm just wondering, why would we pay for that additional parking if the parking is still going to be put in the high school neighborhood? That's sort of how the Westminster deal was presented. So I'm wondering if that could be.
So this is an item that's not on the agenda.
Right.
And so we're not going to have a public discussion for something not on the agenda, because that wouldn't be fair to people that might want to actually partake in that discussion. So we can put this on a future agenda to understand the correlation or non-correlation between the two, but we should not go there right now. So this is a public comment section. So if there's no other public comments, I want us to move on into the meeting. All right. Adam, still no other hands up?
Yes, Mayor, no other hands.
Okay, so we'll close the public comment for items not on the agenda and move into our work session. which is a report on truck access through Witherspoon, Nassau intersection per DOT comments, concerns. Deanna.
Thank you, Mayor. Jim Purcell is also here with me, and maybe he'll turn on his camera because we may be covering this together. Thank you, Jim. So DOT continues to prioritize the replacement of the traffic signal at Witherspoon and Nassau Street. If you recall, they are doing this project with COVID-related funding. Obviously, there is a big demand throughout the state to benefit from the funding. And so we have just been working with the DOT designers in finalizing the intersection design at Witherspoon and Nassau Street. And as was included in the agenda packet for the bin block update, you will see our current plan, the very pedestrian focused current plan, has a 13.5 foot wide entrance onto Witherspoon Street from Nassau Street. And we have been evaluating truck access through that location. I think Mike Ye is in our meeting attendees as well. We have met with Mike Ye and the director of OEM to just talk through truck access, fire truck access. And I won't put words into Mike's mouth, but he did indicate that they were comfortable in accessing Witherspoon Street from Nassau Street. With that width of opening, we are going to work with DOT to make some of the curbs mountable, just to give an extra level of protection to the emergency vehicles that travel through that space. And a lot of times it would be mutual aid response from Plainsboro and those areas. Our emergency services have been accessing Witherspoon Street in its current configuration, at times going southbound, even though it's a northbound operation. And we are working with our traffic engineers to see what other additional improvements we can make to continue the safe response through that space. But we also wanted to use this opportunity to touch on new ordinances that we will be looking into to recommend for council consideration, as well as Department of Transportation consideration. Any regulations related to Nassau Street have to be approved by the state of New Jersey through a traffic regulation order. And we are going to recommend that there will be a truck turn prohibition for right turning vehicles onto Witherspoon Street from Nassau. So we would be setting it up so that all truck access to Witherspoon Street will come through left turns. So it's like eastbound or northbound traffic on Nassau Street will take left turns to access Witherspoon Street.
Okay.
Yes.
No, I just want to, at what point, so I'm just trying to understand. So are you saying that DOT has recommended that we widen the neck there for truck turns, not just emergency vehicles, but tractor trailers, et cetera? And what you're saying is that we want to leave it at the current width and do this ordinance change to somehow let it, I'm trying to understand what width you're saying that the roadway is actually going to be at.
The roadway will be at 13.5 feet as we designed it. As we, have been discussing this project, that it is for pedestrian safety and a pedestrian centric design while still accommodating truck traffic. We do not want to make changes that would impact that decision that council has already made. And, this is something that we consider every time we have a road project, that we don't necessarily open up intersections so that trucks have free flow access easily at intersections. And so we're just bringing that to council to confirm that this is the path forward to be in compliance with what we have heard from council as being goals and priorities for this project. So,
but I'm sorry, but DOT has come back with concerns because they believe the 13-foot or whatever it is, 13.5-foot width is not realistic to allow for safe truck travel onto Witherspoon Street.
no, Jim, did you want to jump in?
No, DOT has not come back with a concern about that. DOT has responded to our request for them to look at the turning movements of vehicles as large as WB-40s. DOT is not recommending one way or the other. DOT is allowing us to move forward with our design as a pedestrian-friendly Witherspoon Street. And we have determined from an engineering standpoint that WB-40 trucks, the tractor trailers, cannot make a right turn heading westbound on Nassau to northbound Witherspoon. They have difficulty making that turn today. We don't know of very many that actually try to. The access is from eastbound Nassau to northbound Witherspoon. And all we're doing is tweaking the design a little bit so that WB-40 trucks can still make that turn by modifying the bump out on Nassau and Witherspoon at the southeast corner. But it's up to us as the engineers to decide what we're designing for. We're designing for pedestrians. We're not designing for the largest vehicles to be able to use Witherspoon Street. That makes it a vehicle-centric design solution. This is a pedestrian design solution. And if we do design it for the largest vehicles to be able to easily make the turn, then we are defeating our entire purpose. The purpose was to make it pedestrian-friendly.
I get that.
They can still make the turn. They will have to make the turn.
If we're going to make those bump outs mountable, then we're actually endangering pedestrians, because what we're doing is encouraging trucks to try to make that turn, knowing that they can drag their rear wheels over the bump out. So I just want to be clear as to what we're doing. I'm not arguing that it shouldn't be pedestrian centric. I want to make sure it's safe. And so I want to understand that we think we're going to get all the tractor trailers to come in Alexander to Nassau versus Washington to Nassau. And when they come Washington to Nassau to Witherspoon, they're going to obey that no right-hand turn thing and figure out a way to turn around somewhere else and come back the opposite direction. That's a concern. And if we make the bump outs mountable, that's even easier for someone on the edge of that bump out to possibly get hit by the rear end of a large vehicle. So I just want to make sure all those, you guys,
yes,
granted, you're the engineers, but I haven't heard how we're addressing that.
With all due respect, whether or not it's mountable is not relevant. A tractor trailer will mount a curb that's only 4 inches in height anyway, if they can't make the turn. The reason we were making it mountable was to accommodate the potential for a pumper truck or a ladder truck from Plainsboro, actually. Not even our pumper truck, because our pumper truck can easily make the turn. This was for fire safety and a very, very occasional time when that would have to happen.
Okay. I would say, having driven large trucks, that if I'm making a turn that I can't make and my rear wheels hit a curb that is not mountable, I'm well aware of that prior to hitting a mountable curb. You have a very different reaction with the vehicle. Anyway, so I think that's a concern. I would also say for our own fire department, all our fire department vehicles are not always going to come the wrong way up Witherspoon. You put a couple vehicles the wrong way, the others are going around the block and coming in the correct way. So anyway,
We have run this by Michael Ye and Joe Novak, and they are perfectly comfortable with the design as it is.
Okay, they don't. Okay.
Michael?
Yeah, I was just going to add that I just think what the engineers have proposed here is a really common sense enhancement of what the project that's already been designed. And it's been my observation in Princeton that most of the tractor trailer traffic is going north and south on Route 206. It's not like there's a steady, there's not a steady pattern of large tractor trailers turning onto Witherspoon Street. So I think appropriate to the kind of traffic that's on Witherspoon Street, particularly truck and emergency vehicles, this really seems to make sense.
I wanted to point out that Mike Yee is there and has his hand raised. I think perhaps want to speak.
Yeah, Adam, could you bring Mike in?
Yeah, no problem. I'm sorry, what's his last name?
Yay, Y-E-H.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to reiterate what Deanna said. We were invited to review the engineering plans on the turning radiuses of apparatuses. Mayor, as you know, that's our primary concern, that we have adequate access. And so we did review all the engineering paperwork to make sure that the appropriate, especially the ladder trucks, can make that. So with that said, we had recommended the downturning of the curb. I certainly understand your concern. That certainly makes good sense to me. But that was just something that we put in only from our perspective. But your concern is definitely understood from possibly encouraging some other trucks to make that turn. But otherwise, we were satisfied with that as far as access for fire trucks from both the north and or west and eastbound lanes. But I'm certainly open to answer any questions that you may have. Anyone has.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, and we are looking, as Jim mentioned, that we may be changing the curb radius at that southeast corner. And that may give us the opportunity, instead of having the mountable curb, by just pulling the curb back a little bit, it could take away the need to do the mountable feature. But we hear you, and we agree that we do not want that to be a commonplace activity for trucks to mount the curb. And we'll take that in consideration in our interactions with DOT and modifying the plan. We also just wanted to touch base on some other ideas kind of in relation to the last conversation we had about the bin blocks. And we have been doing a little more work on the type of ordinances that we will want to put in place for the loading zones and the parking areas. And just in a general sense at this point, because we haven't really talked to the public about it yet, but we would be looking at the loading zone that is closest to Nassau Street, of setting that up so that part of it would actually be 30-minute parking all day long. The remainder of it would be loading for the morning time, say from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m., and then switch over to 30-minute parking. So this is just our initial thought at this point, and we will be working further to work with council and property owners on that.
Michelle.
Thank you. That's great. And just a couple of thoughts while they're in my head. I did have a conversation on Witherspoon Street one day with one of the waste management companies. And he said he would be really happy to come at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, like really early, but there was an ordinance against that because of noise. But just something to consider, because the sooner we can get them in and out, the better that would be, if that's at all possible. And another thought, which is unrelated but related, is when we're doing ordinance and when we're thinking about regulating things down the road, another consideration we need to start talking about is what the furniture is going to look like, what standards we're going to have, and things like that. And trash pickup, and you know, we talked about the responsibility and the privilege. So when we're allowing for outdoor dining, we're going to want some criteria. I'll look at Michael, you know, will place to also give his feedback, what other towns do, best practices, to make it look more uniform, what we're going to allow and not allow in terms of outdoor seating, and what the furniture would look like, awnings if we're allowing, and so on and so forth. So just again, they're just kind of top of head, but while I'm thinking of it, as we're putting those ordinances together, maybe it can go in a combined thing. And by the way, I think it's a really great idea to have that part, the southern part of Witherspoon service lane, be dedicated to the parking. I don't know if we can do a kiosk or how we're going to do the enforcement of that, and then have the other part, the loading, maybe split loading zones. I think that would help alleviate some of the problems for the takeout and coffee shop, and also make it a little cleaner when you're turning in, so there's not trucks all along. So thank you.
We just need to keep in mind on whatever time frame you use for how early trucks can appear, that there are people that live above the commercial establishments. So there's got to be a balance there. That's a Eve.
Yeah, I remember, Michelle, prior to you joining council, there were complaints about early trash pickup. So that's definitely something to you know, to navigate, you know, what the advantages and disadvantages, and maybe, you know, which is better, early trash pickup or having, you know, trucks backed up on the street. I just wanted to first thank the staff for this. I know it's been a lot of work, and, you know, really appreciate all that you've put into it, and your thoughtfulness, and your keeping safety first, because that is absolutely always the number one priority. I think, although Michelle is very concerned with beautification, I know that she would definitely say 100% that safety is first. And I, you know, all of us feel, sorry, Michelle, I'm not trying to, you know, that's meant with love. All of us feel absolutely safety is, you know, the number one concern. So please, any concerns about that, I know that you will bring that up and point them out to us. So I thank you for that in advance, and for what you've done so far. And I do want to just, you know, follow up on what Michelle said. I think just like, you know, we were talking about, you know, possibly rearranging the bin blocks and lessons learned. I think we have learned a lot of lessons from the last year and a half in having the outdoor dining. And, you know, I may not be in the position to identify exactly what they are, except for the trash, which is, you know, a big lesson. But I really just want to make sure that at some point, for those who have been most involved, there's a real opportunity to debrief and sit down and say what went well, what didn't went well, go well, what didn't went well, and how we make sure, you know, as we move forward, that we keep the good things and, you know, improve on the things that were, you know, stressful or not optimal. So, but thank you very much for all of this.
Thank you.
Any other council comment, questions? David.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that I was really pleased with this solution for the trucks, because I was concerned that the merchants really do need to be able to get deliveries from these larger size trucks. And I think the ability to turn left onto Witherspoon, you know, anybody who makes regular deliveries here is just going to know they're going to prefer to come from the south anyway, or from the west, because it's a lot easier to get in on Alexander than it is to get in on Washington with all the students crossing Washington. It's a lot, you know, there's a lot of traffic coming up 206 from the south, you know, from 295. So I think that's probably where the predominant truck traffic comes from anyway. And I'm really glad that that those deliveries will be able to continue to access Witherspoon with really without difficulty.
Okay. Michelle.
All right, one more quick thing. Just thinking ahead, if trucks come in the wrong way, if they come in from Washington or down 27, would they be able to turn down Alexander and go around the circle? Would a truck that size be able to go around? They have to be able to go around the circle, right? And then
You
they
should
can-
be able to.
So that there's an easy like routing way that they could come back. Okay.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we don't want big tractor trailers going all through town either. So it would be good if they could just turn around and come back.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, thanks.
All right. I think we have a member of the public that wants to jump in. Adam, if we could bring Tinica in.
Yes, bring her in.
Hi, good evening. My name is Tina Cotillo, 79 Dempsey Avenue in Princeton. I would like to wholeheartedly thank all the staff members who have been working on this for keeping the safety of pedestrians foremost. I think you really did a great job. I know it's been a long journey, but I think your solution is going to just work. I have a question and a comment. The question is, will the pedestrian crosswalk at Witherspoon Street be raised the way you did so beautifully on Bank Street? And the comment is, the mayor will be surprised that I agree with him on this. But my husband and I, well, he wasn't my husband then, but as graduate students, we lived on Charles Street in Boston. He had an apartment above an Irish pub, which closed at 2 a.m. And at 7 p.m., the garbage trucks were there, you know, being loud because they were just idling. There were 3 of them. And, you know, being graduate students, we didn't feel so good before the crack of noon anyway. And work, I mean, real people don't live like that, but please keep that in mind, that there are people living on that street who are working, and some of whom have worked in the local restaurants until late hours. Thank you.
Thank you. Deanna, do we have a reply to Tinica's question about the crosswalk being raised or not?
We do. It is not proposed to be raised. It would still remain at road level.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
But we are raising it at South Tulane, right?
No, it is not
Oh.
part of the plan to raise it. We just have the curb extension. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking Spring Street. Yes.
Yeah.
At South Tulane, yes, it would be raised, as well as at John Street Alley.
Ah,
yes.
So may I ask, explain to somebody who doesn't know what the difference is in the treatments?
If you were on here earlier, we showed photos of the Bank Street improvements at Nassau, where it's a lower volume roadway, kind of a unique situation. It was called an alley treatment. And so in the Nassau streetscape, Bank Street, John Street Alley, and South Tulane were the 3 roadways that were identified in the Streetscape Guidelines to have this alley treatment, which was the raised crosswalk. And that has not been part of the proposal for Witherspoon Street.
Which has traffic lights.
Correct.
Right, got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tinica.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions or comments on this one? Deanna, do you need anything else from us?
No, I think we are in good shape. Thank you for this discussion tonight. We'll respond back to DOT with the comments that we made about traffic regulation for no right turns, and that we want them to consider adjusting the radius at the southeast corner of the intersection. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. All right, we're going to go to ordinance introductions. Again, these are just introductions. We're not going to discuss the pros or cons of any of these, but we can give an explanation as to what it is. The first one is ordinance 2021-27, an ordinance of the municipality of Princeton, increasing the number of members on the Public Transit Advisory Committee and amending section 2-90 of the Code of the Borough of Princeton, New Jersey, 1974. Public hearing October 11th, 2021.
And Mayor, before it's moved, I just want to make sure that the council members all received the updated version of this ordinance that I circulated earlier today, that it contained a few changes that I can go over, but I just want to make sure that that's what's being introduced and not the prior version that had been posted Friday with the agenda.
Okay, are all council members up to date on which version of the introduction you are voting on this evening?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so the update went out sometime this afternoon, I believe?
It went out by email. Yeah, I want to say around 2:30, somewhere around there. And it really just has to do with how many terms can expire each year. We had to adjust that to make the math work.
I'm sorry.
Based on the increased membership. Sorry, did you see it, Eve, or not? I can very quickly explain.
I did see it. I'm sorry. I just didn't remember, but when you said what you just said, yes.
Okay, so it seems all the council members are aware of which version they're voting on. Very helpful. I'm sorry. So who's moving that? Mia has made the motion, and Michelle was the quickest with the hand up for the second. Any questions before we vote? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye. I have to do a roll call.
It's a roll call. Sorry. Yep, roll call.
Ms. Perrone-Lambros?
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Fraga?
Yes.
Mr. Williamson? Mr. Williamson?
Can you hear me? Yes.
Ms. Sachs?
We got you that time.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Yes, yes, Dolores.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ordinance 2021-28, an ordinance of the municipality of Princeton authorizing the acquisition and extinguishment of an existing sanitary sewer easement for property located at 457 North Harrison Street, designated as Block 5502, Lot 2, on the tax map of the municipality of Princeton. Public hearing October 11th, 2021. Is there a motion? David, thank you. Michelle's got the second. Any questions on this? Okay, Dolores, roll call.
Ms. Perrone-Lambros?
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Fraga?
Yes.
Mr. Williamson?
Yes.
Ms. Sachs?
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2021-29, an ordinance by the municipality of Princeton concerning stormwater management regulation for redevelopment and amending Chapter 10B of the Code of the Township of Princeton, New Jersey, 1968. Public hearing October 11th, 2021. David, thank you, makes the motion. Eve has the second. Any questions?
I do not have the second. I need to recuse myself because I'm an employee
right.
of Watershed. So somebody let me know when you're done. Thank you.
Right, well, you can, all you have to do is turn off your camera and mute yourself. You don't have to physically leave the meeting. Okay, sorry. So David had the motion. Michelle, are you going to second that?
I'll second, and I want to make a comment. And I know this is an introduction, so I'd like perhaps the hearing should just get a little bit more information and background. I think Deanna's memo is really good. I just still have some concerns about the effects on the homeowners or the small developments and what the cost, how cost prohibitive it might be. So I just want to get a little bit more information about that. I think we had some work session on that, David.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that it came out at the work session that
Yeah.
this does not impact homeowners. This is only for projects that go to the planning or, planning board that require a site plan.
Okay, I think I kind of sort of recall that, but sometimes there's a lot going on. So so it's not homeowners. Is it smaller builds like 5 units or less, or is it more than 5 units? Well, how did we define the developments?
The developments are those that require a land use approval either by the zoning board or the planning board. That is what the redevelopment ordinance is related to. There is one section of the ordinance before you that does close a loophole that we had in last year's ordinance about the 1 and 2 family projects. But it was to close a loophole where somebody could submit multiple applications below the threshold without having to do stormwater management. So that is being corrected as part of this ordinance.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so just to be straight, Michelle, you did second it and
I
asked a
second,
comment.
yeah.
Yeah, I just want to be sure. Okay, so David made the motion, Michelle seconded it. Any other comments or questions before we vote? Okay, roll call.
Ms. Peron Lambros,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Mr. Williamson, Ms. Sachs.
Yes.
Mr. Williamson, did you?
Yes, said yes. You have trouble hearing me? I'm not sure what's happening.
Yes, I'm having trouble hearing.
Oh, okay. Maybe I need to get closer to the
Yeah, I
microphone.
think when
Yes.
when you're leaning back.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Eve, hopefully you can hear us and you can come back. Thank you.
We missed you, Eve.
All right, next up is ordinance 2021-30, bond ordinance providing for the implementation of an affordable housing project in and by Princeton in the county of Mercer, New Jersey, appropriating $8 million therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $8 million bonds or notes of Princeton to finance part of the cost thereof. Public hearing, October 11th, 2021. Is there a motion? Michelle? Leticia has the second. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I'll make a comment that we're hoping that could be a little bit less. I think that there's just some work to massage that Pearl's doing, but unfortunately, I think with construction costs having gone up, some of that got eaten up from our understanding. But I also just want to refresh everyone's memory that once the Avalon project is completed, that the pilot that we negotiated will help to offset the debt service on this bond. So we should still.
So we should just limit to discussing what this does and not get into.
Fine, I'm done.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else specifically on Eve?
I just have a brief comment, which is it's so great to see this move forward and come to fruition and be one step closer to reality. So thank you to my colleagues on the Affordable Housing Subcommittee, Finance, et cetera, for all the work, and the staff, of course, for all the work they've put into this. So.
Okay, thank you. All right, see no other comments. Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Peron Lambros,
yes.
Ms. Niedergang,
yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Mr. Williamson.
I don't know what's happening. Can you hear me? Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. I
Ms.
don't know
Sachs.
what's causing that. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dolores. All right, ordinance 2021-31, an ordinance by the municipality of Princeton rezoning 2 parcels on the Hun School campus, Block 9303, Lot 1 on Wynant Road, and Block 8203, Lot 11 on Hun Road, from the R2 Resident District to the E4 Education District, and amending the Princeton Township zone map accordingly. Public hearing October 25th, 2021. Is there a motion? All right, Dwayne was quickest. Michelle, I'll take you as a second, if that's all right. All right, any question or comment? All right, seeing none, roll call.
Ms. Perone Lambros,
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Mr. Williamson,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That gets us through the ordinance introductions into resolutions. And just again, as we mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, number 4, 21-309 will not be considered tonight because that's not quite there yet. So we'll start with 21-306, resolution authorizing the award of a contract to Gabrielli Truck Sales via the Sourcewell contract for the purchase of 3 2023 Kenworth Model T 480V dump trucks with plows and salt spreaders in the amount of $643,371.47. Is there a motion? Michelle and David will get the second. Questions or comments? Go ahead. Michelle, go ahead, then we'll go to Eve. Sorry.
I was just going to say, it sounds like we're expecting a pretty hard winter coming up. Money to spend. But it might not snow. You don't know with climate change.
I think I know the answer to this, and maybe David or Deanna can answer. I assume that these trucks are too heavy to have hybrid or battery powered options. And okay, all right, just double checking. Thank you.
I'm sorry, David, did you have your hand up before? Or?
I was just going to make a comment about climate change. And for anybody who's listening who doesn't know, climate change doesn't mean that we won't have snow anymore. It's weather weirding, not just weather warming.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, David.
Any other questions or comments on this one? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, thank you very much. 21-307, resolution authorizing the award of a contract to Sunset Creations for the Princeton Fall 2021 planting project in the amount of $37,960. Michelle's got the motion. Eve's got the second. Any questions on this one? Oh, great. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. 21-308, resolution authorizing early termination of agreement with Translock Inc. Is there a motion? Thank you, Michelle. Is there a second? Thank you, Mia. Any questions or comments? David?
Yeah, I do just have a quick question. My impression is that this is the location tracking service that had the transponder on the vehicle. And I'm just, the question I have is whether we still have that and it's just provided by somebody else with these new vehicles.
Yes, the new vehicles uses a different app, and the buses have a transponder on them. The new app is Trip Shot, so people can still track the bus using that.
Great. Thank you. Michelle?
Does that interface with the university's Tiger Transit like Translock did before? I would imagine. Yes.
Yes, it does. Jim and I are both mimicking each other. Yes, it does. Our route is, I think, Route 6 on the app. Yes.
Yes.
Deanna, you said it was called Trip Shot?
Trip Shot, TRIPSHOT.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All right, if not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, there we go. Going to resolution 21-310, resolution to purchase 20 sets of Swiftwater suits from All Hands Fire Equipment in the amount of $35,746.40. And just a note that on this resolution and the next resolution, the memos that were attached were from our Director of Emergency Management, Michael Ye, just so you know who they were from. David, is that a motion?
Yes, it is.
All right, Michelle, that's a second. Thank you. Any questions or comments on this one? Michelle?
It's another, I mean, here we are, climate change again. I mean, this is more money that we're spending, for the safety of our forces. But again, it's all impacting from climate change. So I would say that.
Yep. All right. Any other questions, comments? All right. Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. 21-311, resolution authorizing the turnout gear purchase 2021, Skylands area fire equipment, $58,650.64. Again, the attached memo is from Michael Ye. Any, David, the motion? Michelle's got the second. Questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. 21-312, resolution extending the conditional designation of Avalon Bay Communities, Inc. as redeveloper for a portion of property located at North Harrison Street, also known as Block 7401, a portion of Lot 1.01 located in an area in need of redevelopment for development of an inclusionary housing project. Is there a motion on that? Michelle, thank you. Is there a second? Eve's got the second. Questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. 21-313, resolution extending the conditional designation of Terhune Development LLC, an affiliate of Wind Development Company LP, as redeveloper for a portion of property located at North Harrison Street and Terhune Road, also known as Block 7401, Lot 1.02, and a portion of Lot 1.01, located in an area in need of redevelopment for development of an inclusionary housing project. Is there a motion? Mia, thank you. Is there a second? Michelle, thank you. Any questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. 21-314, resolution approving a housing rehabilitation loan to home improvement contract to think.paper.hammer in the amount of $18,323. Is there a motion? Thank you, Eve. Dwayne's got the second. Questions or comments?
Love the name.
Love the name. Mia,
Can I just ask what this is?
you may. And someone's going to tell us.
Maureen, this memo was from Maureen.
Yeah, hang on.
Yeah,
I'm trying to go to it in the agenda package. Sorry, I wasn't quite there.
It's a rehabilitation of an affordable housing unit. It's I believe it's a low interest loan. I can get up to $20,000. This one and the next agenda item are similar, but for two different units. One person seeking a little over 18,000, the next person is seeking roughly 20,000 to improve their units.
Yep.
Great. We get these routinely.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just didn't recognize the.
Yeah, these are starting on page 390 of the agenda package. Thanks, Bernie.
Right.
Okay, so I'm sorry, that was moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. 21-315, resolution approving a housing rehabilitation loan for a home improvement contract to think.paper.hammer in the amount of $20,160. Is there, David, thank you. Is there a second? Dwayne, thank you. Any questions or comment? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Oh, there we go. All right, next up is the consent agenda, which is a resolution authorizing the payment of bills and claims. Someone want to, Eve, thank you very much. Is there a second on the consent agenda? Michelle, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Mr.
Mr.
Thorne?
Cohen?
Here we go. Oh, man, competition for the motion to adjourn.
No, I just said Mr. Cohen. I didn't move. I know my
Oh,
place.
okay.
I'll second David's motion.
There we go. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. Have a great evening. Thank you to the public for